Okay, with all the preliminary stuff out of the way, you're probably asking yourself, well, you probably want me to get started with this game. Now, most people I see who cover this game seem to launch right into a standard game, or random map as it's often called. I'm not going to do that. You see, the basic skills that you generally need to play that, I will plan on covering a random map game eventually before I start the main campaigns of this game. But the basic skills that you need to play, they're all in the Learn to Play here, the tutorial, and that's where I'm going to start by selecting. Basically, this will give you... basically, I already know all the controls and how everything works in this game, but for those of you who somehow are unfamiliar with how an RTS works or how this game works, watch me play the tutorial first, then you'll get a feel for how everything actually works, and then I'll show you those skills that you learned from the tutorial applied in an actual random map game. So, first, the Learn to Play campaign says, learn to play by helping William Wallace rise from his humble beginnings to defeat the British. Now, yes, I mentioned before that even the tutorial is in fact based in real history. So if we click this, we go straight to the campaign screen, and we've got a pretty nice map of Scotland there with a kilt over that side. Make of that what you will. And we've got a whole bunch of scenarios. Now, in most campaigns, you have to have completed the earlier scenarios before you can play the later ones. The interesting thing about the tutorial campaign is, every mission is unlocked from the beginning. You can actually start the tutorial wherever you want, and the manual... Oh, by the way, I should probably mention this. The manual for this game was freaking amazing. I loved that manual as a kid. It was practically the size of a small novel. Not only did it basically tell you... Basically, you can pretty much teach yourself how to play just from the manual, which leads me to something interesting. I never actually played the William Wallace tutorial when I was a kid. I basically taught myself how to play by playing random maps after reading the manual. That's kind of, yeah, so funnily enough, I actually wasn't that experienced with the tutorial, and I never really played the campaigns that much when I was a kid. It was only when I came back to this game much later in my life that I actually started to do the campaigns, and boy am I glad I did, because I would not have been able to understand whatever the hell was going on when I was a kid. But still, anyway, what I was saying before is the manual recommends you start at Mission 6 here, if you're an experienced RTS player, because these ones focus mostly on features unique to this game, these last two. So, yeah. Now, if you're wondering why Forge and Alliance is marked as completed, it's because I kind of may have done an experimental practice run of that mission where I blitzed everything with cheat units just for lols. Just ignore that, and, well, yeah. So, we'll start this campaign with Marching and Fighting, the first and, I warn you, extremely basic tutorial, but hey, every game's got to begin with one of those. Now, I should also warn you, be prepared to hear some of the most extremely, ridiculously over-the-top Scottish accents you have ever heard, starting in a few moments. Trust me, you have been warned.
Age of Empires 2 is about empire building, combat, and conquest. You start from humble beginnings, a small village in the Dark Ages. You explore to expand your borders, conduct trade to boost your economy, and research technologies to grow your civilization into a mighty empire. But there are difficulties too. Cunning enemies and rivals that oppose you, powerful castles to destroy, tyrants to bring down. And if you're skillful and a little lucky, you just might build a wonder of the world and create an empire that will stand the test of time. To learn how empires are built, help our first hero, William Wallace, in his fight against his oppressors.
Insane Scottish accent warning coming up very, very soon.
We are without a leader. The dead king of Scotland has no heir. War creeps in from the south, where Edward Longshanks, the avaricious king of England, has returned from successful campaigns to conquer Wales and France. As Longshanks turns his attention to Scotland, the shadow of fear settles across the Highlands. The English have thousands of Welsh longbowmen, hundreds of knights on horseback, and dozens of siege weapons. We Scottish have a rabble of untrained soldiers who do not even know how to march in a straight line. We must act soon if we have any chance of resistance. We need to forge an army by any means necessary. The English are terrorizing all of Scotland, and it's time for us to fight back. But if we're to defeat them, every one of us will need to learn how to march and fight. Follow the path to the blue flag. First, click the soldier.
Okay, let me interrupt insanely hammy tutorial Scottish guy for a second here. So, basic RTS controls. The mouse moves this really cool stylized arrowhead cursor, and in general, left click selects units and right click issues orders. Now, something that I don't tell you here, but it's some controls that you probably want to know. You can use the arrow keys to scroll the map. You probably will need to know how to do this, it's very helpful. You can also scroll by moving the mouse to the edges of the screen, but I much prefer to, if something popped up there, just ignore it. I much prefer to use the arrow keys. Anyway, let's do what insanely hammy Scottish guy said.
Good! Now, right-click near the blue flag.
So, we have to, apparently, yep, right-click near the blue flag. Now, you can see here that you've got a, bit of a heads-up display down here, showing your unit, and astute players might notice that the militia you start with here has actually already been upgraded, but we'll get into that later. And anyway, this will tell you your player name is where I'm pointing my cursor there, your civilization there, and there's the unit. If we move over, it's that'll just give us a random thing. Anyway, there's also a whole bunch of buttons over here where I'm pointing my mouse. Don't worry about those yet, they'll be explained later. For now, let's just move.
To the next flag. Click the soldier, then right-click near the flag.
So, again, pretty simple, just keep moving.
Excellent. To move to the next flag, you must walk through the black area.
Ah, yes, the black area. Well, I'll let hammy Scottish guy explain it for me.
Moving into the black area reveals more of the map. The black area represents unexplored territory. That's all there is to it. Now go on to the next flag where you'll meet some allied soldiers.
So, yeah, this black area of the map, and you can see it on your mini-map screen down where I'm pointing my cursor there, that, as hammy Scottish guy said, represents unexplored territory. You cannot see anything in that black area until you move units through it, basically. Every unit has a vision range, just like turn-based strategies like Advance Wars, except in this case it's, I don't know, a little different. But as you can see there, notice the brighter area around my unit. Notice how the areas that I've walked through previously, I can still see them, but they're a bit dimmer. Well, I'm not even sure if they do mention that in the tutorial, but I guess we're about to find out.
To move all your soldiers at once, click near the units and drag around them. Then, right-click to move them. Try moving your soldiers to the next flag.
So, this is another one of these basic selecting features, the box. If you click and drag, you'll draw a box on the screen. And I just destroyed it. Okay. If you drag the box around units, you can select a whole group of units at once. This is, yep, a pretty basic thing that you need to know, but it is very, very helpful. If we right-click, all of these units will move as one. Now, watch closely and notice how the units are moving in a particular formation
Did all
automatically.
Your units make it to
sorry.
the flag? The road ahead is guarded by an English outpost. Scroll up to the outpost building by moving the mouse to the very top of the screen. Then, click the red outpost.
Okay, so as I've said before, I much prefer to use the arrow keys to scroll. If we go past these two flags, there's the red outpost. Now, you might notice that our cursor just changed when we moved over it. That is because it is an enemy structure, and that means as the prompt tells you down there, I can right-click to issue an order to attack, but we're not going to do that just yet, because we don't want to get ahead of insanely awesome hammy Scottish guy.
Good! Now, scroll back down until you can see your soldiers again by moving your mouse to the very bottom of the screen. Select your soldiers by clicking near them and dragging a box around them.
So, basic stuff.
Following the road to the outpost. It's time to knock it down.
So, we just got to keep moving. Now, like I said before, notice how the knight here is, and by the way, yes, this is in fact a knight. You'll notice that it has vastly superior stats to these foot soldiers here. And later on, you'll find out a bit more about different types of units, but for the time being, just know that this thing here is your strongest fighter. It is also very obviously a cavalry unit, and you might be wondering why it's moving, well, not as fast compared to your infantry. Well, yeah, I don't know if they mention this later on, so I guess I might as well say it here. When you move multiple units at once, the entire formation moves at the speed of the slowest units. This is something that you'll really need to know later on once we start dealing with ridiculously slow units, but if I issue orders to this knight alone, you'll notice that it moves considerably faster than those infantry do. But the moment that I drag a box around them, it's now keeping pace with them. At least it automatically positions itself in front so it can help protect them.
To attack it.
Oh, and sorry to interrupt you, Scottish guy. So yeah, like I said before, you might notice that your units have different quotes for attacking. And in fact, all units in this game actually speak proper medieval languages. It's actually amazing how much you go over... That guy almost didn't get a chance to attack. Outposts are fairly flimsy, as you can probably tell by looking at them, so we should be able to take this thing out pretty fast.
The outpost is destroyed. That should slow the English raids. Keep following the path to the village.
And if you move up here, you can see the village. These buildings are actually under your control at this point, but you might notice a certain few buttons down there in the interface screen, but we'll be dealing with those a bit later. There's also a couple of deer here. You can select these. These will be important later, believe me. Let's just go up here. And very soon we're about to get a very weird voice clip.
Sweet home.
That doesn't sound anything like them.
English are angry that you destroyed their outpost. They're coming to attack your village. Don't panic. Just click your soldiers and right-click the red English soldiers to attack. Defeat the enemy soldiers, and
you might notice here that your soldiers automatically move in to attack the enemy soldiers. That is part of their own automated AI, and sometimes it's... Oh, okay.
Now you know how to fight
that was easy.
Against the English army.
Ended before I could finish. And we get that awesome victory quote.
Scotland has soldiers now, if only a few. But if we are to turn back the greed of Edward Longshanks, we will need many more recruits. Much more gold in our coffers. These ancient stones and oaks around us will soon be steeped in the blood of clansmen.
Well, that was certainly ominous for a tutorial level. And annoyingly, we don't get a results screen for the tutorial missions, which would have been pretty awesome, because the victory music in this game is amazing, and I seriously want to gush over it when we actually get to it. But anyway, that was the tutorial mission. So, yeah, not that bad. Nothing really that much to endure, apart from ridiculously over-the-top Scottish accents, but hey, I guess that's part of its charm. You gotta admit, it at least does make the tutorial more entertaining. But, that is pretty much it for the first tutorial mission. Not really all that much to talk about. However, there are actually a couple of things that I want to show off, because there is a little more to that tutorial map than probably meets the eye, but, uncovering it will require a little bit of cheating. So we're back here.
The English are terrorizing all of Scotland, and it's time for us to fight back. But if we're to defeat them, every one of us will need to learn how to march and fight. Follow the path to the blue flag. First, click the soldier.
Sorry, but no. And yeah, sorry, those lines never get old, they never do. Anyway, now, what I'm going to do here is, I'm about to do something a bit sneaky. I'm about to enter a cheat code. Yes, this game has cheat codes. Now, I'm going to showcase the cheat codes and what they all do later on in the playthrough. Believe me, some of them are hilarious, but they are in fact horribly broken, and I don't want to show them while I'm still showing off the campaigns. For the time being though, there are 2 cheat codes that I will show at this point, because both of them actually can help for reasons other than horribly breaking the game. I would not recommend using these cheat codes on a scenario until you've already beaten it once though, but they are pretty cool just to show you well, you'll see. So, to enter cheat codes, you press the Enter key. This will bring up a chat window. Now in multiplayer mode, you can use this to send messages to your allies. For example, he probably can't hear me. But, yeah, in multiplayer, you can use that to send messages to other players. In fact, you can specifically set up on a certain thing... No, that's not it. Where is it? There, here we go. You can specifically choose to chat only with your allies, only to your enemies, or to everyone. But that's beside the point. This is also where you enter cheat codes, and that's of course where the real fun is. Now, something that I should first mention about cheat codes. In the original version of this game, the original CD-ROM version, there was absolutely no penalty to using cheat codes other than you'd feel really, really bad about it. Now, however, there is. You might have noticed, just earlier in this video, that I'd actually unlocked an achievement by playing this mission. If you use any cheat codes at all during a scenario or during a regular game, you cannot get any achievements whatsoever in that game. So yes, the moment you use a cheat code, achievements will be disabled. You won't be able to unlock any achievements. Nothing you do in the mission will count towards achievements. So bear that in mind. There is a penalty for using achievements in the HD edition. But, I mean, not achievement, penalty for using cheat codes. Anyway, without further ado, let's just go to this. The cheat code I'm going to type in is Marco, and enter. This reveals all of the unexplored area of the map. I can see the entire road here, the river that we crossed, those deer, and where our town is. But hey, where are the buildings? Well, that's something I probably should explain. Notice the area around this unit here. That is its line of sight. Anything that has already been explored but is not within a unit's line of sight is covered by Fog of War. Yes, the very same Fog of War in games like Advance Wars and Fire Emblem. This game actually predated, well, actually probably didn't predate the original, actually no, predated Fog of War and Fire Emblem probably quite extensively because Fog of War wasn't introduced there until Fire Emblem 5, but I digress. Anyway, basically works the same as it does in those games. You can't see anything that's in Fog of War. And yes, you can see there, your unit's line of sight is, what you can see. This flag actually counts as one of your units, despite the fact that you can't select it, and actually does have a line of sight of its own. But anyway, now, you might be wondering, yeah, that's the reason why we can't see the town, because it's not within any unit's line of sight, it's still covered by Fog of War. But, well, using the magic of cheating, we can do something about that. You probably wondered, Marco, that's an oddly short cheat code. Sounds almost as if it's the first half of something. Well, here's the second half. Polo. Those of you who know your history will know who this is referring to. Enter, and the fog is gone. All Fog of War is now permanently lifted from the map and we can see everything. Hi English Outpost, we're not supposed to know about you yet. Hi town. Now, funnily enough, this town here is actually white, not blue, which is our colour. Yeah, to explain why that's the case will probably take a while, but suffice to say, this thing is not owned by anyone at the moment, and it's programmed to come under your control the moment you put units near it. These outposts, of course, are still red because, what?
Scroll back down until you can see your soldiers again by moving your mouse to the very bottom of the screen. Select your soldiers by clicking near them and dragging a box around them.
Hey, what do you know, I script broke the tutorial. I never knew you could do that, actually. So yeah, I just accidentally triggered a later line of dialogue by clicking this outpost before I was meant to. Yeah, cheats can do all sorts of really weird things, which is why I wouldn't recommend doing them until you've already finished a scenario, but you can have a lot of fun here. The main reason why I wanted to actually reveal the map, well, there's three here. Firstly, you might notice here, there's a whole bunch of forests here. Outside the forests is just a big, wide, open expanse of nothingness. Yeah, even the smallest map size was not small enough for this tutorial's purposes, so they in fact had to make it even smaller by just only using part of the map and blocking the rest off with big amounts of forests. Interesting. But the main reason that I wanted to show you this, though, is if you go over here, you can find a little Easter egg. In the ground here is written a few letters. It's even more obvious if you check the minimap. These letters are ES. This stands for Ensemble Studios, the company that made this game. So yeah, they introduced an Easter egg into the first tutorial mission that a player wouldn't realise unless they used cheat codes. Actually pretty cool. And yes, believe me, you will not know about this unless you use cheat codes, because there is no way to get through this forest. Now, another interesting thing here is you might have seen, notice that red dot on the map where that outpost is. That means it's an enemy, but you might notice another red dot. Let's look up here. What? There's an enemy militia all the way in the middle of the forest. What, you got lost on the way to a raid or something? Actually, no. This thing serves a very specific purpose, and it's probably something a little overcomplicated, but hey, this tutorial probably made you feel like kindergarteners, so I guess I should talk about something a little more complicated game mechanics-wise. This here is what's known as a placeholder unit. The reason why it's here is, in order for an army to exist in a scenario, they have to have at least one unit on the map. Now, the British only have this outpost. They don't have any other soldiers or anything else. I don't think this outpost actually counts towards them existing as a faction, so there's got to be this little placeholder militia unit. Now, by the time we actually reach this town, the placeholder unit will be conveniently erased by the scenario's own programming. Yeah, that'll just be teleported somewhere else. Now, basically, this one, it might not seem like it, but this one militia unit right here, this is holding the entire existence of the British Army together. If this thing were to somehow die, the British would be instantly defeated and we would win this scenario. Yeah. So, that's interesting. Now, normally this doesn't really pay into anything at all, and it really shouldn't. There is in fact one scenario in a later campaign where it is actually possible to discover a placeholder unit without actually the developers knowing and actually kill it, and thus defeating an army that hasn't even spawned on the map yet. I'm not really gonna name any names yet. We'll see that scenario a lot later, but rest assured, once I get to that scenario, I will try and show that off in a bonus video. I definitely won't show it off during the main playthrough of that scenario though, because, what's the fun in cheating your way to victory? But yeah, so that's, a course in placeholder units. So, with that done,
Good! Now, right-click near the blue flag.
What did you say? Click on that giant skull button? What?
It's time to knock it down.
Hi, totally broken script. Okay, I think this scenario really needs to be put out of its misery. So, what did you say, hammy Scottish guy? Click on the giant skull button? I wonder what this button does. There's a second skull here. I wonder what this does. What happens if I press it? Whoops! And now it's time for Ye Old Fact of the Day. Let me just explain how this is going to work. At the end of every episode, I'll give a brief bio on one unit building technology, anything I found particularly interesting from this episode in this game. This purpose is twofold. Firstly, I'll be talking about how they work from a gameplay perspective, mostly because I can't really explain the exact intricacies of every unit that I use in the middle of a actual part, because that would just take way too long. And secondly, I really want to take some time to actually seriously, just show all the amazing historical research that went into this game. Every single unit, building, and technology has a complete historical bio from this game's manual, and I'm going to read out each one. So, without further ado, we begin with our first one. The Outpost. You might remember this as the building we unceremoniously destroyed, and very quickly at that. The Outpost is an early defensive building for a certain value of defensive. It's available right from the beginning of the game, it's extremely cheap and very fast to build. The thing is, it is cheap basically for a reason. It doesn't attack or deploy units or really do anything except see things. That's basically the only thing the Outpost does, but for what it's worth, it does do a very good job of seeing things. The Outpost has a very massive line of sight, and I mean really massive, and it's actually more than most actual offensive towers, so at least it's got that going for it. The Outpost's main use is just to spot enemies ahead of time, as an early warning for enemy attacks. Build them around the edges of your town or places where you think the enemy is going to come, just so you'll get advance warning with your extra line of sight. Unfortunately, as you could probably tell in this video, outposts are extremely fragile, and as you could see, this one, a pretty small band of soldiers, even without siege weapons, were able to tear one down very quickly. If the enemy does get to an outpost, it's not going to last long. Outposts have no form of attack and can't hold units in them or anything, so they're pretty much completely defenseless. The one slight benefit to outposts is because they don't attack, it's actually easier to keep them hidden from the enemy. Normally, when a unit actually gets attacked, your enemy will immediately get this giant, incredibly obvious warning bell telling them that they're under attack, but that is not the case for, well, of course, if the building doesn't attack you, then you won't get that warning. So, yeah, that helps outposts stay a little bit hidden. Of course, the thing is, really, I doubt the enemy really wants to focus on finding and destroying an outpost unless the mission really required it, like in this one, because they really don't do much except see things. By the time the enemies have already gone within range of the outpost and have got close enough to attack it, the outpost has already done its job. Its controller has already been notified of the enemies coming, so really, the outpost has already won, basically. So there's probably very little point in actually wasting your troops attacking it, in that case. But anyway, I guess it could help you sneak more raids through that area in the future. But yeah, outposts are as close to a defensive structure as you have early on, and for that they're alright. But they are extremely cheap and you can't really fault them for that. Later on, you'll probably want to use better means of guarding your territory though. And now for the history lesson. The world of 500 AD was far less populated than the world of today, and there were great expanses of empty and desolate land. To keep watch at the frontier, lords established outposts that would provide early warning of attack and report movements of settlers or trade caravans. As the land became more populated and more settled, outposts were replaced by establishing castles and communities on borders, as you should do later on in the game. I added that last part, but whatever.